I figured, why don't we do something cool for today? Make it short, simple, to the point, and we'll just give some value, give some inspiration, especially for somebody that, let's just say, they're struggling. Maybe like think about how you were back before Heartletics. Like that type of person is listening in right now. Let's give them some encouragement, especially some motivation to tell them that it's possible to start taking action today, become the best version of themselves mentally and physically. So let's recap, right? For the people that don't know who you are, okay?
Sure.
They know you as a coach now, but let's go way back, right before Heartletics. Who we were, I guess, why did you get started with Heartletics in the first place? Like, tell that story.
So I was approaching 50 and was not happy with where I was at all. And I also knew that, my dad passed away at 57 as a result of poor health choices. And I felt like I was heading down that path. So I was afraid physically of what my future was going to hold. But also, I just was not comfortable in the present with the way I felt mentally and physically. I just felt like I wasn't moving, literally. Like, I was going to work and coming home and sitting on the couch or in front of the computer. And I knew that that was not a way to live. I knew that I didn't know how to get out of that because I also had this vision of myself as a non-physical person. It was kind of my identity at that point where I grew up not liking sports, and every, physical person was a sports person around me. So I became the just non-physical activity, non-sports guy, and I was a couch potato. And I was feeling the effects of it. I was tired, I was lethargic. Even things that I like to do, I was starting to lose the energy for, and I felt I needed to make a change. I had tried a few different things over the years. None of them had long-term success because they didn't really change who I was. They just changed, what I was eating for a short-term period. And so I had been following you for a bit, and I said, this sounds like what I'm looking for. And finally worked up the courage to kind of mention it to my wife, Jen. And, I said, I've been following this guy. I really like what he has to say, Coach Joe, what do you think? And her answer was, well, does he, coach couples? And so before you know it, the three of us were on a call that changed the course of my life.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember that call. I remember you guys asking like, so how does it work? And I was kind of like writing down notes. I'm like, well, you said you don't like working out, you don't like going to the gym, right? So I'm like creating the plan right there on that discovery call was because I'm trying to make it fit, right, to your
Of
lifestyle and to
course.
liking. It's like where you are today, you're a gym rat, Mark. But when you first got
Who would have
started,
thought, right? Who would have
yeah,
thought?
who would have thought? But when you first got started, you were not that person at all. So we had
No.
to go through this transition. So let's kind of talk about that. I guess like the first 90 days, right? Because that's what everybody signs up for our coaching program. What was your results and what was Jen's results?
So in the first 90 days, I lost, I'm going to say somewhere around 47, 50 pounds, something like that. I forget the exact numbers at this point. Jen lost about 27 pounds, something like that. And also we found new identities. I mean, which is really what it was all about. I mean, the weight loss was phenomenal. It's definitely, what brought me to the program in the first place. But what I found was an entirely new identity where I discovered, sure, I didn't like sports, but I still don't really love team sports. But I do love challenging myself one on one. Whether it's, starting off with body weight, adding in little things like some dumbbells, some kettlebells from what I had to suddenly realizing, I'm enjoying this. Where can we kick it up a notch? And, adding some, adjustable dumbbell settings, a bench, and then eventually finding myself in the gym 4 or 5 times a week.
I love that. And for those that might be listening, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or watching the replay, on YouTube, um, how did you guys lose the weight? Did we give you like a strict meal plan to follow? And hey, here's some workouts. I guess like for somebody that doesn't know about Heartletics from the outside looking in, give them some feedback. Like how did it help you?
So the big difference with Heartletics as opposed to some of the other things I tried in the past, like say, Nutrisystem or Jenny Craig or any of those things, is that it taught me how to pick foods and eat, not just to be given prepackaged food and say eat this because you're not learning anything. And then as soon as you stop eating that prepackaged food, your weight goes right back. It taught me, concepts like about, macronutrients, about, calorie deficits, about things that, stick with you and teach you how to eat for the rest of your life. And how to incorporate the foods you like into those concepts as well, so that you're not depriving yourself and miserable and, not being able to stick with it. And it taught me, step by step how to learn to work out, from body weights to growing with me as I grew, as fast or as slow as I was at that point in time. Everything was customized to me,
Yeah.
and to my family. Jen, did it as well. Her, workouts are totally different than mine. They still are. And then little by little, the kids saw what was going on. They've hopped on board. They're working out with us as well. So it changed the whole family.
Yeah, and I remember one specific photo with you on a cruise, and you were doing a pull-up, right?
Yes.
And when I guess when was the first? Was that the only time you ever done like a pull-up, or did you used to do something like back in the day?
I, gym class as a kid or whatever, but it was never my thing. Then over the course of Heartletics, I was working on it and working on it, and then I saw the pull-up bar on the boat and just said, "Let's go for it." That whole cruise was like, amazing experience too, because that came right in the heart of my, initial program, and I lost weight on the cruise. And anyone who knows anything about cruises knows it's an onslaught of food, but I did not feel like I deprived myself or anything like that. I was just active and I ate smart. I still ate the good things and enjoyed it, but I knew how to do it in a way that made sense and still met my goals.
Yeah, that's one of like the biggest things that I get asked a lot is like, how do I do this if I travel? How do I do this like where I can still fit in my favorite foods and all this stuff, you know? And it's just like it's what you said. It's the education. It's the lifestyle. It's the guidance. Like, hey, you're not restricting yourself, but instead we're teaching you strategically, right? How do we fit in these foods that, hey, you can eat it and still lose the belly fat, right? And so, you coined, right, the terminology here at Harletics, food Tetris, right?
Yes.
Can you explain that for somebody that, like, let's say they hear the word macros and they're like, oh man, like this is way past me. Like, I don't want to hear anything about this. You were probably like that first, like confused, and it's
Oh
just
yeah. I
things.
remember the first time you said the word macros, I had no idea what you were talking about.
Okay, cool, perfect. So break that down for that individual where they're like they hear that word and they run to the fences. They hear tracking and they think it's like you need a calculator and like the glasses and all this stuff. Like, how do we make this simple for somebody that is like that they're just kind of scared almost, you know?
So macros is a term that sounds complicated and it's completely not. It's just types of foods you eat, protein, carbs, fats. That's all it means. And the program that we use makes it super easy to keep track of that. It's not like you have to sit there and figure it out. You just, enter in what you're eating. It after you do it a couple of times, it's seconds. Super, super simple. But more importantly, you'll find that as you do it more and more, you're gonna learn the concept of it so that you get into what we were talking about, which is food Tetris, which is I still find fun to this day, which is slotting things in and say, like, how do I eat the foods that I like and have them total up to the goals that I have. So it becomes like a game. And it's very simple, very straightforward. And we, teach you how to do it from, pretty much day one. So it's a very simple process.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, okay, now let's fast track to maybe like right now, right? You're a coach, right? Obviously, like talk about your whole entire transition from coach to client. I guess how much weight have you lost completely? We'll start there, like total.
So I lost a total of about 90 pounds, at my lowest. I was, I've also been putting on muscle since then. So, it ranges, but about 90 pounds, is the number. And, I would say more importantly than the exact number is the lifestyle change. Absolutely, I am not the same person I was pre-Heartletics in a super positive way, mentally, physically, every level. I love challenging myself in the gym, which is something I would have never dreamt coming out of my mouth a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when you and I first worked out when I made the trip up to New York, you know.
hmm
You also mentioned, I believe it was either that day or that weekend, that was the first time you're ever going to run a 5K with your son, Cole, right?
Oh yes, yeah, we did that. It was a Father's Day 5K, which was
Yeah.
awesome because we made a family day of it. My son and I ran the 5K, and my wife and daughter walked the 5K, so we all did it as a family. In fact, when I signed up for Heartletics, my son was in high school. He's in college now. He was on the track team, and that was a goal of mine. I said I want to be able to run with my son. And the last day of that 90-day program, me and him hit the park and did, I want to say 4 miles, I think it was. I forget exactly. It's a while ago now, but and that was just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what it honestly means about being a Heartletics coach. It's leadership, right? You got to lead by example. I always say it like this, like if you want to look the par, you got to walk the walk, right? There's so many people out there walking around today that talk the talk, right? But yet they don't put in the right discipline. They don't take the right action, you know? So you went from this guy that hated working out, never played sports growing up, to now this gym rat, right? Where it's like I want to know from you, and then I want to get into like three specific tips that maybe we could talk about that's could just help somebody that's maybe struggling, right? Like how you were back in the day. But like noticing the difference, right, between the gym workouts to at home, okay? What do you think has been like the most challenging part? Because you talked about how you really like to challenge yourself. And I think that's great because that's how you level up in life, right? You never really settle and kind of hit that stall, right? You're always looking for these new ways to challenge. So when life actually throws you curveballs, you're more mentally stronger, more mentally prepared for that. So what I guess has helped you on your health and fitness journey now at the gym? And what are some ways that you continue to challenge yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing that's helped me is, like I said, an identity shift, the belief that these are things that I can do. Because I totally looked at myself as someone who could not do any of this. And that's what was holding me back. And then when I realized that it's not a matter of I can't, it's a matter of what can I do that I like.
Mm.
It wasn't that I can't play sports, it's that I don't enjoy playing sports, so I'm not gonna, not gonna thrive at it because I'm not having fun. As soon as I moved from body weight stuff to bench and some weights, I was like, this is it. I found something to challenge myself that I enjoy. And then each step has been a progression, whether it was, adding a barbell, that was intimidating to me at first, the idea of being under that barbell, but I felt that I could do it, and I did. And then, from there, once I got comfortable with those movements, because I can tend to be a little, shy sometimes. The thought of, going out in public at a gym and doing that stuff, from day one didn't seem comfortable to me. But once I had kind of had some experience with it at home, I realized that there was more opportunity, as far as different movements, different exercises. If I got in the gym, I started, and I I fell in love with it. So now, I'm at the gym 4 or 5 times a week, and the family's hopping along. In fact, my son just finished his semester at college. He's home for the summer. He joined the gym for the summer so that we could all go.
I love that.
As far as tips, so one is the identity, right? Finding the things you like to do and believing that you could do it.
Talk about that though, because like I guess like what helps somebody I guess like for you personally, like what helped you with this mindset shifts? Because we talk a lot about mindset at Heartletics, and some people that maybe might listen to the outside might hear that as like woo woo or like what does that even mean, right? They can't conceive that, right? I guess like what is the mindset that has helped you make that identity shift? Because once you have it, you got it, you know?
I think step one is the simplest thing in the world, which is just be willing to try. Because if you're willing to try, you'll find that you can do things that you never thought you could do. You'll find that you might like things that you never dreamt you would like. And from there, it kind of, takes hold. If you keep doing those things, they just become part of who you are. It's like at this point, if I'm not going to the gym or doing some sort of workout, 4 or 5 times a week, I feel like something's not right. Which, if you told me that, like I said before in the past, I would have told you were crazy. I'll never be that guy. But at this point, if I don't do it, I don't feel right. Same thing with eating right. I mean, look, we all live normal lives. It was my wife's birthday this weekend. We celebrated, we enjoyed it. But I know that if I'm eating crazy for nonstop, like not on a special occasion, I don't feel right. I don't feel like the good way that I feel when I'm eating right. So it's just become, who you are. As long as you're open to those concepts in the beginning, as long as you're willing to listen, try, you'll find that there are things you could do that you never dreamt of.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, especially about the food. We were talking about that last week on one of our coaching calls, where it's just like you change, Coach Brian was talking about it, like you change your eating habits, right? Where everything's good, you go back to eating like some fast food or some greasy food. You just like it feels good in the present moment, but then it's just like you just don't feel good afterwards. You feel like it's
Heavy.
such a yeah, it's such a different feeling. Um, if we had to summarize though, like what you said about like, hey, first step, try, right? Try. Could we summarize that as stepping outside of your comfort zone?
Oh, 100%. I mean, all of this was completely outside of my comfort zone, but I knew I had reached a point where if I didn't get outside of my comfort zone, nothing was going to change.
Yeah. And so what helped you? Was it like that initial like, hey, I got this, or was it like you had the coaches, you had the team members, or was it like an inner pull, like a deep rooted why? Like what helped you step
It's a
outside your comfort
combination
zone?
of all of that, right? Number one is, you have to find, and the great thing about athletics is it helps you find it if you don't have it already. You have to find that why.
Mhm.
Um, because that's your anchor in the beginning. Before it becomes just part of who you are, you need that motivation, that why to get you started. Eventually it becomes like, just part of your regular life, but you got to build to that. So there's that, but there's also the community, which is so encouraging, welcoming from day one. When I joined that community, I felt completely uninhibited to share whatever was going on, whether it was questions, whether it was sharing good things, bad things, whatever. The community was just so open and awesome. It made a big difference. And the coaching, I mean, you talk about the cruise, right? I remember one of the first things I did on that boat was show you some pictures or videos or whatever of what was available in the gym on the cruise, and like bam, there were workouts made to use that stuff, and I used it all week on that cruise. From like I said, migrating from home to more equipment to gym. My workouts were customized all along the way to reach the level that I was at. So having that kind of adaptability really helps you grow with the program, and the program grows with you.
I love that. I love that. Let's summarize now. Let's go over this, right? Like if you had to talk to your previous self, right? The version of you before getting signed up for athletics, and you had to give them three tips for success to help them become who you are today. And this could be applicable to not just your previous self, but anybody. Somebody that's maybe stuck in a rut, they're lacking the motivation, they're lacking the sense of urgency. They just feel like maybe like yourself, Mark, where it's like you tried Jenny Craig, you tried Nutrisystem, you tried all these things. You're like, oh man, what's the point of me even trying these days? It doesn't help, right? What would be the three biggest tips that you would share with them to just kind of help them take that first step?
Number one is don't hesitate to reach out, to Heartletics, because it may seem intimidating. It's not once you actually speak to any of us, and you'll be shocked at how much help you can get just from that initial phone call. Just how much encouragement you can get, how much knowledge you can get, and from there, the ball's in your court. But take that first step because you'd be surprised where it can lead you. That's one. Two, like I said before, be open-minded. A lot of stuff is going to sound completely outside the box of things that you've heard before. I couldn't believe actually how much food I was eating in the beginning,
Please,
right?
please talk about that. Yeah, talk
It
about that.
seems completely counterintuitive to have to eat more food to lose weight, but it worked. You learn about how you're feeding your metabolism, how protein helps you. You learn all these things, and then once you learn it, it makes sense why those things are happening. But in the beginning, you're like, how is this going to work? But it does. So absolutely be open-minded to things that may seem contrary to your goals, because if you just trust the process, it works. And three is engage, meaning talk to the community, talk to the coaches, share, whether it's on, weekly chats like this, whether it's in the community group. The more you engage, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to grow, and the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, we always say the ones that engage the most typically get the best results. And also tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly, especially the ugly, right? Because we're not
Oh yeah, you have
micromanagers.
to share all levels. Whether it's you need to share the good because you got to give yourself that pat on the back for the encouragement, but you need to share the bad and be open and honest because otherwise, how are you going to change?
Yeah, yeah. And it's just like, think about it like this, right? You went on that cruise and you mentioned about how immediately you went to the gym, sent me over those photos, and within a few hours, I gave you the workouts to do that was based on that, was tailored for the cruise. But like, if you
Absolutely.
would have went in there and just said like, oh, I don't want to bother Joe or the other coaches, I'm just going to kind of do my own thing. Like, the game plan is in alignment with the goals, and I feel like that's
Absolutely.
where a lot of people struggle with, right? It's like their goals are here and they try to do their own thing, but then they second guess themselves, or they're not doing the right things where they end up over here, never at their goals.
Yeah, I mean, at that point in time, I had no idea how to you plan anything as far as workouts. So without that assistance, I mean, in time with the program, you learn how to do those things for yourself, but you have to get there first.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Marc, I appreciate your time today,
Of
and
course.
for anybody that might be listening in, whether it's YouTube, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, hey, if you want to talk to Marc or myself or anybody, any one of the coaches, ask us questions, right? Jeremy, Brian, Mike, we're all just here to help. Just go to heartathletics.com. You guys find more information. Marc, anything last you want to say?
Just if you are someone who's struggling, who's unhappy with where you're at, physically, mentally, don't hesitate to reach out because it was one of the best decisions I ever made.